So I am Mansa Bilal Mark King. This is June 25th, oral history interview with Kenneth Zakee. Um, First question is, what is your birth date and where were you born?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, 1950, September 15th, 1957.
Okay. Um, so can you tell me just a little bit about how you found yourself kind of growing up, connecting with Islam and ending up in Atlanta?
Yeah, well, again, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and all throughout my life as a young man, my uncle owned a dry cleaners and barber shop. And so, since I can remember, I remember men, black men, clean cut, bow ties and suits, and a stack of papers coming into the barber shop.
Okay.
And then I remember this image of this man, it was like he had a humble face, clean cut, and had this fez on, as they called them then. Um, and it had stars, sparkly stars on it, and a crescent. And I later became, as I grew older, I become to know him as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so throughout the years, I would always see this image, and then in my neighborhood, I would see these clean cut men with the bow ties. I didn't understand it then. Because I was so young, and I think when I got in high school, one year I saw a good friend of mine, and he was like a thug type. I hadn't seen him for a while, and next time he emerged, he was one of those guys I had seen with the suits on, clean cut with the bow tie on. And I'm like, whoa, I mean, what came across you? And so, like, since I knew him, I approached him and asked him what was going on. And at that time, he told me about the Nation of Islam. Um, and shortly thereafter, I became aware of Muhammad Ali because, he was a big thing coming up for us. He was like, oh man, everything stopped when Muhammad Ali fought. And the thing he went through with the Vietnam thing, going to jail, and when he came back and fought Joe Frazier. And, they were talking about Joe Frazier and others were talking about Muhammad Ali, talking about his name, because he went through a whole lot to get that name. And so that was the man. And so Muhammad Ali, he introduced a lot of guys during that time to Islam. I mean, he made it very popular, and he made it whereas people wanted to look into it, and he was like the Michael Jordan of my time. And so we had an adulation for him, man. And so a lot of guys, he opened up a lot of guys into looking to Islam as it was then, the Nation of Islam. And I was included in that number. And I'll never forget going to Chicago, going different places, man, where the Nation of Islam held events and parades. And I was like 2 feet behind the champ, Muhammad Ali, in a parade. And he used to frequent Cleveland all the time. The year that I joined the Nation of Islam was in 1975. And mostly all my other peers were at prom, and I was at the mosque, listening to the minister, Minister Theodore Hamza at the time. He was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's #1 man in mosque number 18 in Cleveland, Ohio, Theodore Hamza. And so it was just like my first time going to the mosque and find out about it. Being invited was, I lived in the housing projects and down about 2 miles from downtown Cleveland. It's called Community College Avenue, Old Scoville. And so an apartment complex I lived in, one of the maintenance men came in and he was painting. And so he had been there for a while, so I offered him some food. And he said, no, no, thank you. And I said, you're not hungry? He said, no, I'm fasting. And so I didn't know what he's talking about, fasting. So I say, what's that? And he broke it down to me. And then he told me he was a Muslim, followed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he asked me would I like to visit the mosque with him that coming Sunday. And sure enough, he came pick me up. He gave me I had on a shirt, button-down shirt and stuff. And he reached in the glove compartment and got me a bow tie. I walked into the mosque with him with a bow tie on. And I mean, it was something that was just like, it was just something I had never seen before. All these women dressed in white, and then the way it was set up, the men sat up front, the women sat in the back. They were sitting in these chairs and the way the message was delivered, it was almost like they had a warm-up act. The assistant minister would come, warm up the audience, then the main minister would come, and he'd give the lecture. And I mean, I was just amazed, man, the way they were talking. They were talking about white folk and stuff, man, and talking about swine eaters, and just talking about all these things, and the way that they was talking about it with the aggressive tone. It was like a mind-blowing experience for me as a young man. I was like 16 at the time. And I'll never forget when the service was over, you go downstairs, you're smelling all these fish sandwiches and looking at the dessert table with bean pies and chocolate, and it's just like, I mean, he treated me to it, man, and it was like, I felt like I was in heaven. And I felt like it was just such serenity in that place, man. And it amazed my young mind to hear grown men and women addressing each other as brother and sister, and it was just like something told me that place told me there was something better to life, and my life was a little rough at that time. My mom and dad had separated, and I was pretty much, like into the streets with my boys and stuff, smoking some marijuana and doing all those things, man, open to the vices of the streets. And I had seen my best friend, he had gotten some trouble, and he was and they told him, because he was underage, either you're going to go to jail or you're going to have to sign up for the Army. They gave him a choice. So my best friend signed up and went to the Army, and so I found myself, a loner for the most part. And like when I saw my friend, and when I told you I knew he was a thug, and he joined, all those things came to me, and I said, well, let me be open-minded and look at that. And so I took the plunge, and I became a member of the Nation of Islam in 1974. And I had to say that it was a lifesaver for me at the time, because I just saw so many things going wrong with most of my friends. They were either in jail or in the graveyard. So I knew there was a better life for me, and I just felt like Allah had introduced me to that, pulled me into that. And as a young man, it was like that daddy that was missing in my life, because I had all these strong black men around me in the FOI. Because the male component of Nation Islam is the FOI, the Fruit of Islam, and the women component is the MGT, Muslims Girls Training. That's the component there. And so we had classes throughout the week, and we talked about manhood issues. We marched, we drilled. I had to be out there, man, in the public, our downtown Cleveland, with my stack of Muhammad Speaks. And, my bow tie, my blue suit. I was down there religiously, particularly on Saturdays afternoons. And I had me a stack of papers, man. And I'd be out there, and it taught me how to deal with things, man. It taught me how to deal with rejection, because you'd be surprised during that time how a lot of people didn't have no problems with cursing you out, telling they don't believe in that, and it was something else, but I felt so strongly about it. I knew what it was doing for me. I felt good every time somebody bought a paper and wanted to have some knowledge and stuff. I felt good every time someone did that, and so it taught me a lot. It gave me a camaraderie. It really taught me more respect for women. It wasn't no thing about trying to give for a woman and take her bed. It was about trying to give for a woman and make her my wife. That was the philosophy that I learned there, and I'm just most grateful for that. And like I said, I became a Muslim at that time. And then I had I think a year later, 1975, that's when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made his transition. And I'll never forget going to Madison Square Garden for a memorial service for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. No, it wasn't a memorial service. It was for the introduction of his successor, his son, Imam Wallace D. Muhammad, as he was known then. And later he changed his name to Warith Dean Muhammad. And so I was there for that. And it was like amazing to see all the FOI there. I had seen that before through the Savers Day, going to Chicago throughout the years. But I mean, like, to see that many Muslims in one place in Madison Square Garden, oh man, it was something else. It was something else. And it was interesting, that transitional period during the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Warith Dean Muhammad, because when Warith Dean Muhammad came in, he really changed things drastically that some people just wasn't prepared with it. I mean, it left a lot of people in a tailspin because his philosophy was one that was moving people away from the Nation of Islam's teachings, where it's talking about Master Farad Muhammad and, talking about the earth, the circumference, all of those things was like basic things. And, you had to do some, write letters and stuff to get your X. A lot of those things he just pushed to the wayside, and he changed it, and he moved the nation into mainstream Islam, which is something that was met with some resistance with some folks, but it wasn't met with immediate resistance because some people had to let it all settle in, these changes, and some of them was hard to fathom. And even Louis Farrakhan, Honorable Louis Farrakhan, he was stuck, he got caught up in that because he was like right there with Imam Wafdi Muhammad, promoting him, pushing him, showing his support. And then within a year or two, because Imam Wafdi Muhammad gave Farrakhan the name Halim. He had stopped being Louis Farrakhan and became Halim Farrakhan. I think Halim means fiery one. And so that was his name. And so I'll never forget this speech that Minister Louis Farrakhan gave. It was during that transitional period, it was a year within time that the Imam Wafdi Muhammad became the leader. And I'll never forget this message Louis Farrakhan gave. It was at this old giant tiger building in the Harvard and Lee area of Cleveland, Ohio. Muhammad Ali had bought this big building. Today it would be like considered a Kmart, but it was called Giant Tiger at that time. And Muhammad Ali had bought this big building, and we were converting it into a mosque at that time. So Honorable Louis Farrakhan, he came there and gave this lecture, and I'll never forget the name of it. It was called Resistance to Change. And he gave that message because what was there, what was going on with the membership. A lot of people was resisting, and he knew that. He was resisting the change, and he was going there like a cheerleader for the Honorable Wafdi Muhammad, in fact, because he was a comrade. He wanted to believe in that. He was speaking for Wafdi Muhammad because Farrakhan wanted to believe in that. And he did try to his credit, but I think with him, just like a lot of others, when the more changes they saw in the way things were traditionally done, the more they wanted to sing. Imam Wafdi Muhammad came there and he told the ministers that was there back then that y'all got to give up those Cadillacs, y'all got to give up those fancy vehicles because y'all salaries are paid by the people. And see, back then, there was some things going on, like ministers, they were like powerhouses. Back then, they were like powerhouses. I mean, they had the nice cars, they had the nice homes, they had the businesses. Minister Theodore Hamza, he had several businesses. There was Muslim businesses that he hired Muslims and stuff. He had I think that man had a Rolls Royce and a Cadillac. And that was commonplace for a lot of ministers. That was common. And Imam Wafdi Muhammad said no more of that. And a lot of them, they either got with it or got out of it. And a lot of them, later, when Farrakhan broke out into his own thing, a lot of those old ministers, they embraced Farrakhan. And like some of them, one of the ones I love the best, man, this guy right to me, man, he was just one heck of a leader. And his name was Ali Rashid. He became the minister, I think he replaced Minister Theodore Hamza in Cleveland. And he used to be the chief, I forget, I'm having a block, but he was a chief security person in LA. And like he came to Cleveland, man, as our minister. He is one of the most powerful men I've ever met, man. And that guy, he was just inspiration. And he took over, and he was open-minded enough to transform himself into the mainstream Islam and be an imam. That guy, man, he led us, he's the one who introduced us to Ramadan. We wasn't practicing Ramadan. See, like with those mosques, those chairs I was telling you about I sat in when I first went there, those chairs were removed. And everybody went there and sat on carpets like they do universally in masjids. All that stuff was removed, man. It was told, hey, you know, y'all can't have this stuff off the back of the people. So a lot of them left and a new breed came in. A new breed came in, man.
How did you react to the change in the teaching?
It wasn't really hard for me because I thought it was gradual, and some of the things that I did have some resentments about that I really didn't like about the nation at that time. And it was like some of the things I saw was a bit hypocritical. You know, it's like you tell us to do this and be this and that, but yet in your paper you like have Diana Ross and these other celebrities, you be praising them, and you know, they're not living that lifestyle. You had Diana Ross, she's married, she ain't married no black man. The black man she married on, she was cheating on somebody, but she married all these white men, but yet you gonna prop her up, but yet you talking about the white man is the devil. And then like it was some of the things like, one of the things I didn't like back then, I was a young man. You had to get so many newspapers a week, 100, and then, you know what? You had to get all those papers. That was your quota every week. So if you got 100 papers this week, and next week, next Monday, the new edition come in, you got to have 100 papers. So you got to sell 100 papers within this time. So you got to get creative. You got to do this and that, or you stuck like Chuck. Okay. And I found I had papers that stacked piled up this high. I'm a young man. I'm 16. That's a rebellion age. But I'm trying to do the right thing being there, man. And then we had this thing called White H and G Fish from the fresh waters of Peru. That was a big thing back in the 70s. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad introduced this. They negotiated something with a top official in Peru to get this fish sent exclusively to America for the Nation of Islam. And we had to go around to people's doors, knocking on doors with all this frozen fish. And so I'm in the dead of the winter in Cleveland, man, and it's 13 degrees. Now I got all this fish, freeze ain't big enough to hold it. And it's just like them newspapers. You had to fill your quota. And so that my resentment came from, you know, this is messing with me economically. I ain't have a job as it was, you know, that was my job, and the little money I make from the little percentage they get me, it's going to that. So I felt resentments for that because of that. It was mandatory for you to do that. And then like they operated like a military system. There was sergeants, lieutenants, and this and that. And some of them didn't treat us right. Some of them, man, it was like their position and their status. It was a status thing in the Nation of Islam. It had a little status thing. And if you was at the bottom of the totem pole, you was pretty much treated like that. So it's a hierarchy. It's a hierarchy there. Minister, assistant minister, treasurer, captain, secretary, all this thing, all those positions and stuff, they were revered. But if you were just a foot soldier, you wasn't treated with that equality. And like I say, as a young man, and I called myself a soldier, I was responsible for all that, and that impacted me economically. And so a lot of times, man, like I just had resentments about that, to answer your question. So I sort of welcomed that change. I welcomed the fact that you wasn't mandated, you know, to do this and sell this and that, you know, and that you can just go there and worship Allah. You know, I welcomed that, man. I just thought I felt more at peace with that. And it may have had something to do with my first introduction to Islam was Sunni Islam. That was my first introduction, but I was too young to like follow through. I was in middle school. I was like in the 8th grade, but it was in such close proximity to my home. Some Muslim brother, they had a little mosque, and I found them very friendly. So I walked in there one day and I checked it out, and they were like they're making salat. That was their whole thing. You want to pray with us. And they were smelling good, those body oils they had, and the way they was eating, it was just some peace. So that was my first introduction to it.
You remember how old you were at that time?
I think I had to be about 13. And so like I was saying though, like then those events happened with Muhammad Ali, my friend who lived a thug life, and the guy who was painting my home and stuff. All those things, that's what inspired me to go and look into the Nation of Islam, those things. But my first introduction was actually like Sunni Islam.
And were they African American?
African Americans. Yes, they were African Americans and they had a house in an African American community in Cleveland, east side of Cleveland, and doing that thing.
Did you ever know of them doing sort of work outside of their community, but more in the broader African American community?
You talking about like propagating
What,
or just general work?
whether it's feeding, helping people learn how to
You know
read.
something, they were a little low key because like back then, man, people wasn't looking to, it was like an oddity for a lot of people, man. It was like abnormal for them to see this, and so they wasn't readily accepted by a lot of people in the community. They wore their hair wrapped, they wear long tops and stuff like that. This was like back in the 70s. So, it was a different environment then, in other words, and they wasn't out there in the community a lot. They just led by example for the most part, and that's what attracted me to them.
And so, getting back to the transition, I think we spoke earlier. You told me you ended up moving to Atlanta by 1986.
I moved to Atlanta in '86 to attend Morehouse.
Okay.
Yeah, before that I was in Cleveland, attending Masjid Bilal. It was a new masjid they built on the main street there, and that was the evolution of Mas 18. See, they were like in a big house they bought, and it was like an upstairs, downstairs. That's how Mas 18 was. But since then, they moved into their own building, had a mosque built from the ground up, and they renamed Mosque 18 to Masjid Bilal. Because, Bilal was the first muezzin. He's the first caller to prayer. You know that, it's in your name. And that's what they named that mosque, Masjid Bilal. But I came here, and I attended Atlanta Masjid over there on Glenwood area in East Atlanta. I attended that, and also being in the AU Center, running to Dr. Khalid. Dr. Khalid, Muhammad and I formed a relationship, and I used to hang out with him at Old Pascal's on James Brawley, and Dr. Khalid, he would bring, when Minister Farrakhan would come to town, we would all hang out. I'd be with Dr. Khalid. I was a student at Morehouse then, started a brotherhood called Kemet Asin. It's a African Brotherhood. So Dr. Khalid was very interested in that, and he used to drive around campus in his stretch Mercedes-Benz limo, white, and we drove around the campus, man, talking. I got him to speak at the Morehouse Chapel, the Martin Luther King Chapel. He came in and spoke to the freshman class, Dr. Khalid Muhammad.
Do you remember what year that was?
That had to be, I think that was in 87. No, it was 88. It had to be in 1988. Yeah, Dr. Khalid. And so as a result of that, I became very familiar with the Nation of Islam in Atlanta. And one of the bedrocks of the Nation of Islam community in Atlanta is Minister Rahman Muhammad. And like for the most part, he's still very active today. And I would call him like the godfather, really. And that's how a lot of people look at Minister Rahman. It may have been a lot of ministers here in Nation Islam since he stepped aside, but he's always been in the background, always. And I know him. I've had the pleasure of working with his wife. I've met all of his children, and I know about his history, man. In that heyday, here in Atlanta was one of the biggest, most productive mosque in the country, Atlanta.
Do you know what kind of work they were doing at that time when you got here, 86, 87?
Mainly they were just still doing propagation work, like they had a presence in the AU Center, attracting students. I know quite a few students became Muslims, and they was doing a lot over there off of Campbellton. They had a mosque over there off of Campbellton, and I would attend those meetings on a regular basis, and it was just basically outreach with the now the final call, things like getting in the neighborhood. I saw a thing about them reaching out to more mainstream people too, politicians and celebrities. They were doing a lot of outreach to that, and I saw them. The Nation of Islam even came into a respect for Ramadan. They observe Ramadan. It's a lot. I mean, the Nation of Islam that I left, that transformed into the world community of Islam under Wahid Muhammad, is different than the one that's present today because they have more, they're more in step with universal Islam. It's just that they've held on to some things that's uniquely black America. You know, I can't even say as Western. I can't say as Western, but I would have to say it's uniquely black. But one thing for one thing for sure, the Nation of Islam has always used tenets of Christianity to attract brothers and sisters into Islam. Now, you're not going to find a lot of people in Nation of Islam, you know, wearing like African, Arab clothing and things. They're going to still wear their suits and ties, you know, and do that. And those are some things they held on to, you know. And it's not bad because that's who we are as a people. But like I would see Dr. Khaled transform into that and put on an African faux piece like that. It wasn't nothing. I think that he made that more popular among African Americans than anybody else, because every time you see Dr. Khaled, his dress and his expression was always reflecting African culture. You know, if he had on a suit, he probably had on a kente neckcloth, you know, necktie with a strip around his neck. That was Dr. Khaled, you know. And so I saw, but like in mainstream, and like the Honorable Wahid Muhammad's father, you'll find a lot of them still wearing suits and stuff like that. But their thing is like the universal practice of Islam. That's what you hear them saying. But like with Farrakhan and stuff, I still see a lot of, it's more emphasis on social consciousness and political and politics. I see that. That's still a strong thing about the Nation of Islam. It's a lot of emphasis on political, economical, social consciousness. To their credit, I had to say that. That's a big difference.
So at that time, when you moved into Atlanta, you came to the AUC.
Yes.
Were you familiar at all with Imam Jamil's community in the West End?
I became familiar with Imam Jamil's community through my cousin, Omar Ali Bey, and also at some conferences that I attended. And also the fact that I was with the Atlanta Masjid, because what would happen is during Ramadan, all of the masjids would get together and they'd talk about having a meal. You know, the name, the Islam name eludes me, but it's the meal for when you break the fast. Where are we going to have? Iftar, thank you. The iftar meal. So this masjid was responsible for 1 week, this one. So it was like some unity there. And so I was familiar with them that way. And also I attended the mosque a lot because I was in the West End. I knew about it, so I go down the street on West End Street, you know, it makes a lot there. And like I said, all the mosques, you would change that stuff every Ramadan. So I learned about Imam Jamil's community first year I was here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In some of our other talks with folks, folks have made it clear that at that time they were known for sort of doing community policing in the neighborhood.
Yes, that went on up until, it may still be going on the low, in fact, but that went on all until the time that Imam Jamil was arrested and in prison. That was going on during that time.
So could you describe like how that was for you as someone coming from outside, as you saw, did you see just patrols of brothers?
I saw patrols of brothers because, you know, it was like one of my hanging spots, you know, being over in that area. And it was just very quietly done. It wasn't no thing where it was blatant, you know, and it was just quietly done. And brothers just peacefully, you know, talking to people that they see like, you know, hanging around and just, you know, they just talk to them. But I ain't never seen nobody strong arm nobody. But I know that has gone on, you know, and it is necessary because he had to clear that area. That area isn't what it used to be. And like you'll find a lot of Muslims own homes on that street, on the West End Street. And so they cleaned up all that riffraff that was going on there. Made it nice for the youth to go over there and play basketball. And annually, as you probably know, we have the Malcolm X Festival right there across the street from the masjid. And that's been going on for, I think it's been about 15 years or more now. And the Muslim community even come there and they participate in, they have a group called the Dawa Ensemble. And they get up there and they're singing. They're singing about Allah, and righteousness. Like they have one tune called Lower Thy Gaze. That's an ayat from the Quran, talking about, woman walk back, you don't go looking at you, lower your gaze. They have a tune like that. And they're just good. They do all a cappella. And they came out of the West End Masjid. And it's like one of the lead members is brother Nadeem Suleiman Ali. He's an imam too. He's one of Imam Jamil Al-Amin's right-hand mans, and he does a lot of the Jumu'ah services.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get involved in organizing any, like the Malcolm X Festival or any of the events?
I was the MC for the Malcolm X Festival for 12 years.
Okay, so
yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was also the chairman of the Metro Atlanta Kwanzaa Association for 5 years. And I did a lot of things like put together the resource guide, to schedule, and did a lot of things for that, and also pushed the Muslims would attend. Because the beautiful thing about Kwanzaa is Kwanzaa, unlike Christmas, is not a religious celebration. It's a cultural celebration. And so one of the things I wanted to do, being a Muslim, was get more Muslims out to understand and appreciate that. Because I don't think we should be on an island with our religion. And there's got to be some common threads as Africans Americans that we can all join in together. And I think one thing that we can observe and appreciate and celebrate is our culture. And so that's why I became involved in those particular movements.
What years was it?
What years was the Metro Atlanta Kwanzaa Association?
Were you doing you said for 5 years you were...
Yeah, this was like 1987 through 1992.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm still involved. I've been involved for the longest, but I like being in the background more, and doing things, because when they came out with that Kwanzaa stamp, I said I'd done my job, because it's well known now.
So let's see, we kind of went through. Are you still Muslim?
I'm still Muslim.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Assalamu alaikum. I wasn't sure.
Alaikum salam. Yes.
Like some people, when you give them the salams, if they moved out, sometimes there's a discomfort.
No, like where I'm at, I'll just I'm not. I haven't been a practicing Muslim, but I have not claimed anything else. And like I've had some struggles, with Ramadan, because I'm a diabetic and stuff. And so, I'm just still struggling. But Islam's made such a big difference in my life. And, like I say, a Muslim is a believer. That's the definition for a Muslim. And I'm a believer. I believe in Allah, man. Allah is the centerpiece of my life.
Let me ask you a question. You live in the West End area. This is a historical area.
Yes.
My brother stays one street over.
Okay.
Now this area, the West End, the Muslims who have the West End Community Masjid over there,
Mm-hmm.
that's Imam Jamil's.
Yes.
When they moved in, were you in this area then?
What, I was in this area from like 89 through 93. I lived through 95, because I lived right down the street here on Peoples Street, about 6 houses from the Ralph David and Peoples Street. And then I lived over there on Langhorne and Oak. Like when you're going to the freeway, I stayed over this way about 3 years, and then I stayed over there about 5 years. So I've been in West End for a long time.
So then, did you directly see their impact on this community over here?
Yes, I did.
Because, part of what we're going to tie in some of these stories is Imam Jamil's impact on this community, like specifically. He had a huge impact on this community, and even though they have him incarcerated,
right,
their story
that don't take away from his work.
Exactly, and
he ain't no villain, no criminal, in my opinion. I mean,
exactly, and that's part of our work, is telling a whole nother side. Why do people, somebody follow somebody like this monster that the media is saying he is?
Yeah, I mean, something, man, I'm gonna tell you something, man. I met Imam Jamil Al-Amin. All I seen was H. Rap Brown, just footage on him, eyes on the prize and all this footage and all this. Every time you see him, big afro and talking stuff, burn, baby, burn, all that. Man, I met that guy. He's probably one of the most humblest people I have ever met. Imam Jamil Al-Amin, that guy is so soft-spoken. I mean, and like just movements, he just like move at a pace. I mean, measured pace. And and that little black spot he had right there, that man's he's what he is, man. He's a leader. That man turned his life over completely, man. It's hard for me to fathom him snapping and killing somebody. It's hard for me to see that, man. That's something, and that's why I'm saying, my brother, that's a kind of, all I can do is look at his fruit. You know, you judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. And that man bore fruit. I mean, he is a strong part of the West End, the cultural component of the West End. Even though he is a Muslim, his name and reputation alone made this area black, you know, and culturally. I mean, his reputation, and then what he did, man, and to take over that whole street like they did, it's not as many Muslims living in that street as it was.
Oh, okay.
But at one point, man, that whole street, I'd say 90% of that street was Muslim, and then the ones on the side. It was other Muslims living. It was a concentrated area. And all that influence, man, it changed that. It changed that, man. It ain't no way. Them people, man, everybody on that street, man, they went to the mosque. I just interact those words, interchange those words, masjid and mosque. But they went there and they prayed 5 times a day. How you gonna have all them people, man, praying 5 times a day and it ain't gonna change something? The environment, you think about their mindset in between the salat. That's a powerful thing right there, man. So how you gonna get all that energy and then somebody gonna go shoot somebody? I have a hard time, spiritually, I have a hard time with that. And like I say, I've been around Imam Jamil Al-Amin on more than one occasion. Publicly, privately. I sat down at the mosque with him, with 2 other brothers, my cousin Omar Ali Bey, and a few students. And we all sitting right there in the carpet after making salat, man, and he just talking to us freely, answering any questions we have, and just humble. Just humble.
You say your cousin is Omar Ali Bey?
Yeah, you know Omar Ali Bey, Cleveland, Ohio?
I don't know. Did he used to live in California?
I don't know if he lived in California, man. But in Cleveland, this guy's a legend.
Really?
In fact, they named a street after him.
Dude.
Yeah, this guy, Cleveland, Ohio. Because I don't know how far y'all trying to do this, man, but I got some people in Cleveland for you to talk to. Man, because Cleveland has a rich history as far as black Muslims.
Yeah, it does.
Cleveland has a rich history, man. And it's a good friend of mine. This brother's name, Khalid Samad, something like Khalid Samad, is Muslims who made a difference in the presidential election. That one county, Cuyahoga County in Ohio, that is the county that made the difference in Obama becoming president. And it was Muslims who did it.
Organizing people.
Organize them through a Congresswoman Marcia Fudd's office. I think they had a grant for a get out the vote grant for $60,000. And a good friend of mine called on this Muslim brother and told him to rally the troops, gave them that money. They had people block parties, getting haircuts, skating, watermelons, you name it. All the people was out there to get that vote out. And it was the Muslims who made that happen. The Muslim community there.
That I did not know.
Yes, they made the difference. A lot of people don't know. They made the difference in the presidential election. It was Cuyahoga County. Look it up.
That's us. I think I know that county. I've seen.
That's
that.
Cleveland, Ohio. That's the inner city.
What's that county?
Hey, when you think of Cuyahoga County, you think Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Just like you think about Atlanta, you think Fulton County.
Right.
Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. They don't want to say it, but Cleveland made the difference. Black Cleveland made the difference in the presidential election. That one county.
Yeah, see, part of this is we tie in because we can branch out from all of these stories. But see, there's an impact in when, okay, so I know Dr. King,
Mm-hmm.
and something happens to me, and Dr. King says the media can spin and say, well, that's his partner. He knows him like that. Of course,
Right.
he gonna back him like that. When it's somebody who's distant, see, when you got on every level somebody that's right there with you,
Right.
maybe in your household, somebody that you work with every day, somebody that just observes
Somebody
you,
that just lives in the community.
Right.
that just observes you,
Right.
that has an impact
Mm.
on. We got every level saying that all of these people, you saying one side of them. Look at all these people that he made a difference in. Because how you said, you look at the tree, man, you see the fruit that it bears.
That's right. And you know, man, I've noticed like Imam Jamil Al-Amin, he would, when I was at Morehouse, man, he would be on a lot of different panels.
Oh, he was on campus a lot.
Yeah, ITC did a thing, man, Pan-African Congress, that ITC, they'd invite him in, Imam Jamil would come. You know, he'd talk about what happened back then, but he's always promoting Islam. He's always, you know, promoting Islam. And his message is basically, this is a peaceful way, you know, and he know a lot of them people don't know Arabic, but he gonna always say his Arabic and break it down in English, because, you know, he letting people know that, hey, you know, Islam, Allah is a way of peace. That's how he came, man. See, a lot of people try to, in my opinion, they try to have those whispers, and some people, no matter how hard you try, they don't want to detach you from your past. They're up there trying to call him H. Rap Brown. That man's Imam Jamil Al-Amin. He ain't got no big afro no more. He ain't waving no machine gun. He ain't pumping no fist. This man is making salat. But they want to keep him H. Rap Brown. And so one thing that was stigma that was on the West End Mosque was he got a lot of former Black Panthers. They ready at any moment to put out their AKAs, you know, and shoot somebody. That was the perception. But see, all I've ever seen was, you know, humble brothers, man, making salat. I mean, they may have me a fool. Maybe they should all get Oscars. But that's all I got was love, man. I saw brothers, man. Them brothers brought out the best in me. I'm trying to pick up my game, seeing how good they were, how devoted they were, how they on top of their salat. Them brothers made me have to pick up my game. If I go there right now, I got to pick up my game. I got to work on some things before I go over there.
That reminds me. Did you know any other Muslim like students, or actually even non-students, who lived in like the West End while you've been in here?
I did, but like a lot of them, they moved on, man. Like one guy, he's a minister in Oakland, California now, and like his whole thing, man, he was attracted to that era, man. Dr. Khalid, you know, Imam Jamil. I mean, he was influenced by them, like so many of us, man. I mean, that was one of the best times of my life, man, when I was around those guys, man. That was one of the best times of my life. I just felt like I was around sages, man. I was being around Imam Al-Amin, Dr. Khalid, you know, because see, a lot of people, they had their perceptions of them, but I think the thing they had in common, man, was they loved their people, and they love Allah. I seen that shine through them. They didn't know that about Dr. Khalid. Dr. Khalid ain't care about nobody but the uplift of his people and worshiping Allah, and he can do it with the best of them.
Were you there at the same time Naeem Akbar was there?
Dr. Naeem Akbar left the AU Center, to my understanding, in the early 80s, okay. And he went to, I think he's at FAMU now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, University of Tallahassee.
The one that's in the same town as FAMU.
Yeah. I think it's University of Tallahassee, something like that. Okay. But anyway, he left but during that time. But Dr. Naeem Akbar made frequent visits. He was always in Atlanta. Yeah, he was always in Atlanta, man. And I had so many of his tapes, man. I think I had a thing like this, man. That was my boy, Dr. Akbar. I like one of those things he say African American people suffering from AIDS. Cultural alienation, immunization deficiency syndrome. Because his whole thing, man, was about culture. And that's what I loved about Dr. Akbar, man. You know, to be a Muslim, you know, because most Muslims, you know, outside of, you know, like reading the Quran, worshiping Allah, you know, like just doing certain things, he just ventured to, I think he was a unifier in the sense that most people knew he was Muslim, But he was out there talking that culture and hanging out with like the Asa Hilliards and the Ivan Van Sertimas and, you know, the Chancellor Williams and the Dr. Benz, the Dr. John Henry Clarks. Dr. Akbar, to be a Muslim and to get into that fold, man, he opened up a door for people to take a different look at being a Muslim. See, a lot of people say, you know, Muslims, they're a little soft, you know, they don't, you know, they just want to be pious and stuff and pray, you know, but they don't really want to do nothing socially conscious. But Dr. Akbar, man, and Dr. Khalid, and, you know, like I said, the Nation of Islam's always had that rep, but he made people look at things a little differently. And I know I got a lot of respect to Dr. Akbar, man. Dr. Akbar is one of my poetic influences, because I'm a poet. You know, that's what I do more than anything, and people know me for.
I know I see the art all over the house. Like,
and I'm an artist. All the gores that you seen, the paintings, that's my work. But I'm best known as a poet. Yeah, that's what I'm known for. I used to open up forums in the AU Center with poems. They say, this is what we got going on, and we want you to write a poem. And one of my most popular poems was something that I think I got from my Islamic influence, and it's called Be a Man Boy. It's called Be a Man Boy, Be a Man. And that's like ladies. I got young men, I was over that warehouse, and these young Africans, they from Africa, they say, man, share a poem. I share that poem, they want a copy of it. I walk down the street and I see them, be a man, boy, be a man. I had to share it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
You got it.
Yeah, it's right up here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't make excuses for who you are. Ain't got a job, money, or a car. Your situation ain't up to par. Just remember, in God's eyes, you're a shining star. Be a man, boy. Be a man. Lack of material things don't uncrown a king. It's lack of knowledge. Know what I mean? If you knew your history, your life would not be a mystery. Be a man, boy. Be a man. Why do you sit around watching the soaps, living in a dream world on high hopes? You were put here for a purpose, not to live your life in a three-ring circus. Be a man, boy. Be a man. I can understand you blowing off steam because of forces playing with your self-esteem, but be a man, boy. Be a man. There ain't nobody else like you on this earth. Why don't you put some meaning to your birth? Be a man, boy. Be a man. I know you like to dance to the beat, but don't go acting like a dog in heat, chasing dresses and tight jeans. You make a baby, then you gotta go. Why don't you stick around and help it develop and grow? Be a man, boy. Be a man. You brag about the size of your brain and fail to mention that it's filled with filthy blunts and crack cocaine. Don't you know that you're still wearing a chain? Be a man, boy. Be a man. Why do you make such a fuss over your hair? Do you think folks in Haiti care? Be a man, boy. Be a man. Your idea of having a good time is getting high and drinking wine. Is that why you think it's always party time? Be a man, boy. Be a man. God gave man the power to choose. It's up to you to win or lose. Be a man. Take a stand. Plan your work. Work your plan. Be a man, boy. Be a man. There ain't nobody else like you on this earth. Why don't you put some meaning to your birth? Be a man, boy. Be a man. And please take those pants off your knees.
So how recent was that? How recent did you write that?
85.
85.
Yes.
It still applies.
Yeah.
That's why I asked that.
Every part of it.
That's 85.
While I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, because, you know, in America now, they're redefining what being a man is. And so these things that what you just said, I remember growing up. I mean, all of our generation remember growing up. Just you hear that from the males, that they would always guide you on the definition of what a man is.
Right.
And now they're actually pushing education and children towards their definition
Yes.
of being a man, which is you're free to do whatever you want.
Yeah,
and
do your
nothing
thing.
in nature
Ooh.
teaches you that you can do whatever you want.
Nothing.
Nothing in nature.
Nothing.
So I you know, I hear that and I'm just like, you know, that would be a great rap song right now. That hook would go over well.
Yeah, you know, I mean, they ain't gonna do it because it's too positive. And you know what gets me, man, is you like, I'm not a critic of rap. You know, I'm a critic of content. Right. And I have to, because I'm a wordsmith. Right. You know, and like, it gets me because a lot of the sounds, man, the instruments, I mean, the music is banging.
Right.
And it seems obvious to me that you can put any words to that.
And people
Why it
will
gotta be
swallow.
garbage? You can put any words to that and it's gonna sell and it's gonna have such redeeming impact.
Anything.
You know, Dr. Charles Finch, man, I never forget attending one of his lectures. And Dr. Finch said, man, back in ancient Kemet, there was certain music they wouldn't even allow to be played in society. Because they understood the impact. There was certain music they wouldn't even allow to be played in society.
And there's still some societies like that.
True that.
The media paints them in a very negative way
Yes.
in the U.S. But
Yes.
I think there are lots of people who around the world.
Oh yeah.
Who
You look at
recognize.
China.
Oh, yeah, and you know, they talk about them.
They
I don't blame them.
YouTube. They blocked YouTube.
Wow. Wow.
That to me, when they took that stance, it wiped out anything that America could say, because if you keep talking about somebody like your enemy and at the same time you're borrowing money from them, but anytime you feel like painting them
Right.
in a negative light, you just do it at will. Because, you know, all of us that's in academia, we see that, you know, you have Chinese coming in and out of the country, especially in Atlanta, giving conferences, teaching Americans, building these relationships. So I always sit back and I'm just like, man, you know, I got to give props to them, because they took a stance like, I'm not even going to let y'all affect my
That's right.
I see what's happening.
That's
to my
right.
people before just watching
That's just
this.
brilliance, man. That's brilliance.
But see, with you being known as a poet, were you invited to perform at lots of different functions around town?
Yes.
Do you remember any of the just names of them in years? Because I could see you spread
Man,
out over the whole
but
city.
you're right, brother. I've been so invited to so many places, man, and shared poems in so many venues for so
Outside
many
the city,
organizations.
right?
Yes, for so many organizations. You're right. And I was at a lot of Muslim events. I was at Christian events, Hebrew Israelites events.
That's what I expect. Cultural events.
Cultural events, man, and like I say,
across the lines.
and like the Malcolm X Festival, that's what I did in between introducing acts. I was sharing poetry. So, you know, that's what I'm known for in Atlanta more so than anything else is my poetry.
Because when I was at Howard, in the spring, we had the Spring Black Arts Festival.
Mm.
And if you had been there, or even if somebody had come from Atlanta and
Right.
had to connect, they knew they could get you up there.
Yeah.
I could see that kind of, they'd be like, oh, let's call Kenneth, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just envisioning Atlanta being.
That's how it was, brother. You on top of that, because that's exactly how it was. Like I said, Dr. Collett knew me as a poet.
Right.
That's how Dr. Collett and I started hanging out. He heard me share a poem in the Woodruff Library. And Dr. Collett came up to me himself and shook my hand, and that's how he and I formed a relationship.
Okay. I think that's because when we contextualize this discussion about Muslims being a part of the whole Black freedom struggle that don't get talked about. When folks start talking Black history and they start talking about civil rights, they might mention Black Power, but I'm like, there's a lot of African American Muslims doing things, not necessarily under a label as a Muslim, but here's a Muslim who's a
Right.
poet.
You know something, man? A lot of Honorable Elijah Muhammad followers are not the ones that's attending mosque today. You have them with dreadlocks. You have them in business suits. You have them in corporate America. You have them all over. And what I mean by that is they're just children of people that's in the nation. The impact is so widespread of his message. Even though you don't see people, you know, it's like changed the mindset. It changed the mindset because a lot of people assume that because you Black, you Christian. But a lot of people, but like today, man, it's just so many brothers and sisters that don't embrace Christianity. And to each his own. But I'm saying it's a lot of people that have different mindsets because of the influence like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The guy, Ben Ami, head of the Hebrew Israelites. He was a bus driver in Chicago, a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That guy was a bus driver in Chicago, man, when he joined the Nation of Islam. He broke off, and that's how the Hebrew Israelites was formed. They got to even give that part of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is part of their history.
I did not know that.
Yes, you can research it. Ben Ami, find out his slave name in Chicago, And you'll see he was a follower of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. See, but that's what part of the influence. It's just like Garvey. You know, Garvey, his influence is widespread. That man's influence is widespread, man. A lot of Noble Drew Ali. All of them, man, they had such an influence. They don't have the big soapbox podiums and stuff, you know, but their influence is wide, man. What's happening in Black America because of these influences and stuff, man, and the Islamic influence. I've seen Islam. I know right now, man, you even have one thing that came out of the world community of Islam under Wafd Muhammad, you start having a lot of Muslims start running for public office. Muslims started running to public office back in the mid-'80s. Quite a few said. I think somebody was a mayor. I know there's a lot of councilmen, councilwomen sprang up. But right now you got Brenda Muhammad. She's on Atlanta School Board. Yep. And there's some other ones. One of the other brothers got in that trouble. He's a Muslim.
It was...
You know what I'm talking about?
Now, you mentioned the mayor of Macon right when I moved here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Jack something?
Yeah, I forget because I had ties to a couple of people.
Okay, and you look, man, the former head of the NAACP, Ben Chavis, Ben Muhammad, he became a minister in the Nation of Islam.
Well, I mean, the reality, you see the influence. Mayor Qasim's real name is Muhammad Qasim Reed.
See?
A lot of people.
I ain't know that, see?
He couldn't run off of Muhammad.
Right, he couldn't run off Muhammad.
What did he say? He said his parents were either they weren't in or they were just about in the community at the time that he was born, and so his name was, you know, everybody Qasim.
Right, yeah, everybody know that.
Everybody, you know,
he's not gonna say Qasim.
Folks don't know Qasim like they know Muhammad.
Right.
Yeah.
Ain't that something? See, and that's a perfect example of what I was saying. That influence, man, it's like you can be in a room, you just don't know who you're in a room with, man.
Right.
This is true.
See, I think we hit pretty much everything. How? Because I'm starting, I guess, from about the time. Actually, we know the law changed in 1965, and that's when the Muslims from other countries started to come to the U.S. in much larger numbers. When did you first start, after you had sort of joined, once you've joined Nation of Islam, when do you remember encountering, and how did you navigate those encounters with immigrant brothers and sisters?
I guess it was, most of the time meeting them was in some type of social gathering, like either being at the masjid or Ramadan, iftars and things like that. And it wasn't, it was pretty much the same with other Muslims I encountered. It's mainly on that basis, on a social basis, for Jummah, and iftar. Other than that, I really didn't be around a lot of those people during the weekdays and stuff,
It wasn't kind of regular life.
Right, because it was work, work and all that stuff, school, study. So that was the only time I had those encounters. And like here in Atlanta, again, how the Muslims, the imams formed a united front. And so even the minister of Masjid Al-Farouk over there on 14th, yeah, I mean, he would come through, and so all those communities was just merging and coming together, and that's probably some of my first encounters with them. And just sometimes, just for a little change up, I would go there for Jummah services, and that was basically the encounters there.
Okay. The West End actually has a West African Muslim community.
Yes, they're down there. In fact, one of my roommates here, Pop, he's from Senegal, West Africa, and he attends there every Friday for Jummah.
Do you remember when they first started coming into the West End?
This had to, they've been in West End, I think their masjid has been for maybe about 2 years. Okay. So it's been recent. It's been pretty recent since they moved over here. They have another masjid downtown on Broad Street.
Okay.
It's like upstairs. You know what I'm talking about, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Called, is it Jammy?
I think you're right, Jammy. Okay. And then there's one down there on Campbellton.
Yeah, that's Salam.
Is that Salis Muhammad?
Oh, that's another Nation of Islam community.
Yeah, that's another Nation of Islam, Salis Muhammad. Yeah. I think the 5%ers were born out of John Muhammad. He was supposed to be the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's brother. I noticed they attract more hip hop generation, the 5%ers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I was gonna. Further down on Campbellton Road, there's a Senegal Gambia.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, yes, sir. That's right. I've seen that. I didn't know that they were from there. I didn't know that. Yeah.
They bought an old church and turned it into a masjid.
Okay. Yeah, I got to visit there. Like I said, my roommate, he's from Senegal.
Mm.
He's been here for about 2 years, and he goes over to the one over there, the West African.
From the bank. Yeah.
Yes, that's one he attends.
Okay. What was your major when you were at Morehouse?
Psychology.
Oh, so yeah.
Yeah.
You would have taken a class or two.
Yeah, and I was the program manager for a transition home for homeless men for about 11 years,
Oh, okay.
called Trinity House Big Bethel, and it was for homeless men who suffer from substance abuse.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you also had to learn substance abuse counseling.
Oh yeah, I was doing that while I was going to school because I was doing bed checks, and I would go there and study. I was working graveyard there, and so I would go through all those books in the office because it just really, and it's just really, I was just amazed at it, and I think I made a difference in a lot of lives. I'm not doing that now. I do some part-time work. I work with DUI offenders. I do groups with them. Yep, I do some part-time work with a doctor, and otherwise I'm just doing my art, the gourds, and all of that, man.
Very nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We leave anything out?
Anything you think?
Yeah, did we leave anything out?
I think y'all, I don't know. I think I did a good job. I'm in peace.
If the conversation made anything come to mind that we didn't ask about, that would be.
Yeah, well, I think I'm satisfied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I just hope I gave y'all some insight to some things or added to what y'all already done.
You did.